Today, we're going to talk about leading with influence with the Key for Women community. So, what does it mean to lead with influence? I often think about influence as a tool that is super, super helpful for women in business. It's something that we naturally have more of. We're gender socialized and wired to be influential, to please others, to include and collaborate in conversations. And so this is actually a great strength that we have as women. So one of the tools to think about your sphere of influence is your why. And great leaders out there like Simon Sinek have been talking about this for years. If you haven't seen his TED Talk, it's a great one. But I want you for now just to think about your why. What inspires you to be a leader? What do you do well as a leader? And how do you want to improve as a leader? So kind of close your eyes. If you're watching on the video, just close your eyes for a moment. Think about your sources of inspiration, what you do well, and areas that you want to improve on as a leader. What does your journey look like? What is your why? Why do you do what you do? Why do you want to be a leader? Why do you want to lead your business? How would you articulate your purpose and your why for you as a leader and for your business? It's a powerful exercise that we'll debrief in person. In addition to these three things, these will be your homework, your pre-work, if you will, some thought questions, but I'll tee up some information about it today to help you prepare for our discussion together. And the first is demonstrating vulnerability in a really confident way. So we talked about vulnerability with confidence. We're going to talk about it again today as a tool to kind of put ourselves out there, show our real authentic self in a way that builds trust with our team. The second piece is about giving. And successful leaders and influential leaders give to give rather than transactionally giving to get. Those would be what we would call matchers, and they are not giving intentionally. They are giving in exchange for something. So think about your gives to gives, and we'll talk about giving strategies because women are very good at giving. But if you give too much and you give in the wrong areas, you can be exhausted, right? So there is a threshold there that we'll explore. And the third piece is around inspiring others through storytelling and powerful questions. Great leaders tell great stories. Great leaders ask great open-ended questions. And we'll talk about questions you can ask your team and your clients. So the tools to lead with influence are kind of threefold here. They're giving, vulnerability, and inspiration. So think about the benefits of leading with influence versus leading with power. And power is kind of an outdated leadership principle. I'm the boss, I'm in charge, just listen to me, tell them how it is, kind of beat people into submission kind of leadership style. Not effective in today's world. And if we try doing that with our millennials, we've got some real issues, right? Versus influence. And I think this is an area where women shine. And thinking about the behaviors that are more influential, there are things like fostering collaboration, gaining commitment versus just telling people to do something, getting their buy-in up front, engagement, engaging people in decisions, getting their ideas, helping them feel like a part of the process, right? So these are all the behaviors of influence that can lead to some really great results, like higher quality, higher productivity, and lower turnover. There's an organization called Gallup that actually measures employee engagement, and what they're finding is shockingly in the US, only 1 in every 3 workers is engaged in their work. So that's leading to all of these icky results like turnover, lost productivity, and quality. If you have someone in your team that's not engaged, chances are we're not doing enough of this stuff or they're not a fit from our team. We talked about values. That's also a fit component. But what can we be doing as a leader to be more collaborative, gain commitment, and engage our team? And so what does influence look like? In our research for Pivot Point, we found from women leaders that were successful, they shared these 4 things with us. And they shared that influential leaders are open. So think about body language, signaling to your audience that you're open. You think about the power pose from before. Open gesturing, not crossing our arms. That's signaling to people that we don't want to hear from them, even if we're just cold. Put on a jacket if you're cold, but maintain open, poised body position. And really that means maintaining effective eye contact, using nonverbals like shaking your head, saying aha as a verbal. But all of those communication mechanisms signal that you want to hear from somebody, and that helps you gain influence. So as you're listening and soaking it in, people are looking to you as a sphere of influence. Actually, the most influential leaders are quiet and they're calm, kind of calm, cool, and collected. Reflect on the leaders in your life that have influenced you. Chances are they listened more than they spoke. Okay? Because what they've done is they've helped enable your own self-discovery. They've helped influence you in a way that was aligned with your core beliefs and values and your strengths, and they let you bring your full self to the table. That's what influence really looks like. It's not about telling, it's not about showing, it's not about you. It's about everyone else around you. And so some of the things I heard from everyday women about influence in our research for Pivot Point were things like this. The first quote reads, "Simply asking the question, 'How can I help you?' goes a long way." And I would even take that a step further now. For those of you who have direct reports on your team or a team that you're actively managing, I would say, what is one thing that we could do to make your job easier? Right? And so that takes less of the pressure off of, how can I help you? They might say nothing. They might not think that you really believe that. But if you pinpoint one thing, people are going to give you some good information there. Second quote, "It's all about explaining the why. The why can be how this impacts the team, the consequences, the benefits, the WIFM." And the WIFM stands for what's in it for me. Okay. Anytime to change, any new idea, anything new to people, the first thing they're going to go to is how it impacts themselves. We are selfish humans. We are wired to protect ourselves. So you've got to start with the why. If you're implementing something new, chances are that you've been thinking about it for a while, but this is new to your team. Put yourself in their shoes, be empathetic towards them, show them that you thought through the impacts, the benefits, the consequences, get after the with them and the why right off the bat. And as a leader, I sit quiet in meetings and wait for others to solve the problems. I clench my back molars. If asked, I say, I don't know the answer. I think that's such great vulnerability. Saying I don't know is hard, really hard as a leader, especially a business owner. We're supposed to have all the answers, right? I think you'd be surprised if you told your team, like, I don't know, what do you think? And if you say it confidently like that, wow, you're going to get some wowzer kind of responses from people. And so practicing active listening, sometimes clenching your back molars, like this woman shared with me, helps and discourage you from speaking, but it also promotes really healthy active listening. So the tools to lead with influence are really about giving to give, vulnerability, and inspiration. So we're going to unpack each one of these. To me, vulnerability feels kind of like being naked. It feels a little uncomfortable. And so I shared these ideas, about vulnerability is really being honest and transparent with your team. It means saying, I don't know, but here's what I do know. Asking for feedback is very vulnerable. The first time, and if you say, do you have any feedback? You're not going to get feedback. Say, what's one thing I could do better next time? What's one thing I did well? What's one thing I could do differently? That's a great way to frame feedback. Creating a safe environment. So you really want to promote safety. The best way to do that is to show some chinks in the armor of your own, mistakes that you've made, the weaknesses that you may carry. That's going to help create safety, because if you can be a human, your team can be a human. You're giving them permission to be their full selves. It builds trust. Patrick Lencioni with the 5 Behaviors of Cohesive Team, this is paramount, what he says to trust. If you don't have trust on your team, chances are there's a lack of vulnerability. You've got to own it and demonstrate it as a leader. It's a safe place to be your true self for anyone else to truly believe that. If you're walking around stoic and perfect and demonstrating you have all the answers, wow, your team is A, not going to trust you, and 2, not feel comfortable admitting their own vulnerability. If they make a mistake, they may hide it, and that's very detrimental to a team. Expressing confidence. We talked about that last time, and admitting our mistakes, right? We all make mistakes. It's hard to admit these things to people that know us well. Your family might be different than your team. I know this myself. But stepping into our own vulnerability and admitting when we make a mistake is very powerful. So how we give to give, okay? And so if you think about this, experts in the giving space, like Adam Grant, who wrote the book Give and Take, powerful read, talks about 3 kinds of people: givers, takers, and matchers. And what they find in the research is the most successful people are givers, but the least successful people are also givers. What good intentional givers do is they share, they connect, they question, and they bring their authentic selves. What they do not do is give until they're completely empty and exhausted and have nothing left to give. They give to themselves. They practice self-care. And what they say yes to are things that are truly aligned with their why, their strengths, and what gives them energy. So people are asking you to do things that deplete your energy. It's time to start saying no. And as a leader, that is very hard to do. As a woman, that is very hard to do. But dial in on what gives you energy, what makes you feel confident, what is a true complement to your strengths, your passions, your why. Say yes more to those things and say no to the other things. Because if you're saying yes to everything, you're saying no to yourself. So how do we inspire? I mentioned storytelling, and great storytellers know this well, right? We learned this in 8th grade English, the archetype of a great story. There's a beginning, a middle, and end. There's a climax somewhere in the middle. You know, great leaders are great storytellers. They captivate an audience. Here's a time when this happened. Or when we're selling to clients, stories of past success or challenges are so, so powerful. So we know this, right? Think about your stories. What are the stories that inspire your team? What are the stories that inspire your clients? How do you craft those stories in a way that's succinct, it's meaningful and powerful, and evokes positive change? Know your stories. And then active listening. Great leaders listen more than they speak. Take an inventory of your meetings. How much are you speaking versus listening? You know, for me, I like to listen more than I speak. So that 50% threshold is very important and a good reflection point for me after group coaching sessions. An open-ended question. Start with powerful words like how and what. So when we inspire people, we're promoting self-discovery. People are much more inspired by their own thoughts, beliefs, values, and ideas than yours. I know, tough stuff, right? When was the last time you got fired up about someone else's idea? If you did, chances are you were involved in it. So how do we get people involved? We ask good, open, crisp, open-ended questions. And those begin with how and what. So it's things like, what do you think? How do you think we should do this, right? There's also great qualifiers like help me understand, please describe. What we do not use to start good questions are words like do, could, should, would, anything would. And I promise you, when you start getting good at this and crafting good open-ended questions, your team is going to be far more engaged. You're going to get better ideas and a lot more buy-in. So in wrapping up today, please do prepare these 3 things. So these are your pre-work thought questions for our next time together. The first is, how will you demonstrate vulnerability in a confident way? What did you take away from your vulnerability talk? What are ways that you can practice vulnerability with your team? 2, how will you give to give rather than giving to get? Right? What are your gives? What are the things aligned with your why, your purpose, your passions, your strengths? How will you give in those areas more? Say no to the things that are not aligned there, and not be a matcher that's giving to get. And the third piece is about inspiring others through storytelling and powerful questions. What are your stories, and what are the questions, your go-to questions that you keep in your back pocket to ask your team when they're looking to you for solutions? How can you promote self-discovery through powerful questions? What are the questions you'll ask your team more of? So join us next time. We'll debrief these thought questions and have a great discussion.